quiet. This is a meeting where there is no public comment, just so you know. Today is Monday, July 8th, 2024. This is a Curriculum and Learning Committee meeting, supplemental material reconsideration.
Speak up, please.
We are at the School District of Menominee Falls Board of Education. There is a possibility that a quorum of the full membership of the Board of Education may be in attendance at board committee meetings, including virtual meetings. There will be no full board action taken at any board committee meeting. Only members of the committee may vote on any item on the agenda. A live broadcast will be streamed on the school district's YouTube page. To watch the recorded meeting, please visit SDMF YouTube site. We're at the School District of Menominee Falls, if I haven't said that yet. Conference room 3344-3345 on Pilgrim Road in Menominee Falls. This meeting is called to order at 6:02, and then, I don't think it says there, but it was properly posted. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move ahead into supplemental material challenge reconsideration. Consideration of supplemental material challenge to Love Makes a Family by Sophie Beer. This book is a supplemental material in the 4K classrooms at Shady Lane Elementary. The district will follow the attached policy and procedure 871, challenges to supplemental educational materials. Okay, so we're gonna have discussion. And per policy procedures, I'm going from my memory right now, it's not in front of my face, but Amy's here to help me, guide me along. You each get 15 minutes about, and of course I will give you more time if you read it, okay? So would you like to start?
Sure. Doesn't matter.
And you want to introduce yourselves or oh, and by the way, we do have 6 members of the board here, and if you guys are willing, you want to speak up too, you can also speak up. And our names are present here. And I am one of the committee, the chair of the committee. I'm Chris Stewart, sorry. And then we have Nina Christensen, Dr. Nina Christensen, board president, and board member Ren. Okay.
All right, well, first of all, my name is Katrina Moldenhauer. This is my husband, Paul Moldenhauer. Thank you, every single person in this room for being here to hear what we have to say. Do you want copies of the emails, anything? I just come prepared.
I have
That's all.
information.
information.
Okay,
The other,
so.
would you guys like copies of it?
Sure, I'll take it mine.
Okay. She'll just give me.
Yeah, somebody turn the sound down in the hallway.
Oh, that's all, it's the live stream.
It's like an echo.
Okay. I'd like to start off by saying that within Mr. Hoffman's denial to remove this book, he flat out admits that it is not appropriate and is considered controversial for a preschool classroom. Showing relationships like this to such young children in a classroom is not appropriate. It is also not the place of a public school to push sexual or political ideologies. Every family is different, and who children's parents are is something kids see at home, not something that's taught at school. I realize that there are children out there with same-sex parents, maybe even trans parents, but in the same way that I would love for the book, God Made a Family, to be sent home to children, I know that it would not be accepted by all the other parents. So why have this book? Why choose to send home this book when there are so many others that teach kindness, that don't have controversial illustrations? The author, Sophie Beer, has a history of writing and illustrating problematic books for kids. Kids don't need to be learning who to love and all of that at the age of 4. That to me is grooming. The picture that is most concerning is the one you can see in the folder I've provided, or in the emails. I just lost myself. It looks like a trans woman, not a heavyset man, a trans woman. This isn't appropriate for children. Children are born innocent. and should be allowed to hold on to that innocence for as long as they can. Showing children images that are sexual, whether it's a family lifestyle or not, is not okay. BookLooks even lists this book as one of the books that should not be allowed for children. It states on their website that the first page depicts a man with breasts. That is unacceptable and will be confusing for kids. As a mom of special needs kids, all 3 of my girls, this book is only confusing and problematic for their learning. In special education programs, these books are nowhere to be found. I have had 2 daughters in ABA therapy, and nowhere in the programming is the issue of confusing pronouns or debating whether a man is a man, because these kids, and all kids, are just trying to learn how to use normal pronouns, learn that they are a little girl if they're a little girl, or that they are a little boy if they're a boy. This book just confuses those kids even more. And whether your kid is neurodiverse or neurotypical, it's not fair to them to throw books like this in the mix. When there are millions of other books, like Hungry Caterpillar, Little Red Hen, Chicken Little, Billy Goat Scrub, and so many others that are appropriate and teach them great values. Not all books have value just because they have words and pictures, something Mr. Hoffman disagrees with. He stated in the meeting we had that because a book has words and pictures, it has value. Okay, then what about porn in the elementary schools? Gay, straight, or otherwise, why aren't we doing that? Are those valuable for kids? Make that anyone in the education system? No, lifestyles are taught at home, not school. Relationships you have with parents is something that is dealt with at home, not school. What you teach your children about others is taught at home, not school. School is meant for reading, writing, math, being a good citizen, teaching patriotism, not about feelings, not who to love, and not ideologies. We would love if this book would get removed, and others like it, especially if there would be pushback from the same principal who wouldn't want a book like God Made a Family. I tried to show him this book in the meeting and he shoved it aside. I fully intended to just show him that this is an example of something he would not send home because it would be controversial to certain families. If love makes a family can be sent home, why not God Made a Family? Transsexualism is an ideology and should not be taught. This book only emphasizes it with its illustration. Please remove this from the elementary school, especially the preschoolers. I'd also like to quote Mr. Hoffman in his rejection that he said, "If this book is objectionable to families, it does not need to be read." He just admitted in that statement that books like this, that could be controversial, are going to be sent home no matter what. It's the parents' discretion whether they read it or not. My question back is, why send it at all? Isn't your job as a principal and educator to help every child learn? So why send something you know wouldn't be read by every family? Why not just send an educational book that would be read by everyone, that would include everyone? Why even risk the thought of not encouraging a child to read that night when that's your job, is to encourage reading and writing?
I'm very happy to be here today since my full-time job has kept me away from prior meetings in this matter, so I just wanted to make a shorter statement in my own words in defense of why I believe this book does not belong in the school's curriculum. Let me start off by saying that parents should be the final authority on what their what their children are exposed to. Multiple Supreme Court decisions in the past have all landed on the supporting side of the parents' fundamental right as primary educators to educate their children how they wish. When books like the one in question are sent home without parental knowledge, schools overstep their boundaries in their role as educators. Sending a controversial book home without parental consent serves to directly usurp the parents' rights to make this decision for their child or children. I believe the Supreme Court case of Wisconsin versus Yoder in 1972 makes a very valid point in their opinion, which states as follows: "The history and culture of Western civilization reflect a strong tradition of parental concern for the nature and upbringing of their children. This primary role of the parents in the upbringing of their children is now established beyond debate as an enduring American tradition. Contrary to what many in this room may think, the reason we are here today shouldn't be a partisan issue. It is an issue of educational value and age appropriateness. The book in question simply has no educational value, and although yes, it has words and pictures, that does not guarantee that it has value. In fact, it does nothing to build comprehension and advance vocabulary or any other skills children are learning at this age. Most importantly, it also depicts a man waking up next to another man with pigtails and breasts, which leads me to my next point on age appropriateness. If you, in your own home, want to support alternative lifestyles like the one clearly illustrated in the book, go for it. That's on you, and it's also your right. But don't do it on the taxpayer dime and with my children. I feel it's important to note that the Menominee Falls School District Human Growth and Development Curriculum doesn't begin to take effect until 3rd grade. Introducing topics concerning alternative lifestyles and relationships is not age appropriate, least of all to students like my daughter who are considered special needs and do not yet have the comprehension skills to understand what they're seeing. Principal Hoffman, in his own words, has in the past stated, if the book is considered controversial, it does not need to be read, which is more than enough to hint at the book's latent controversial subject matter. If it's open to interpretation as controversial, why bother using it in place of other actually educational material? If any of you think this is an unfair assessment of the situation, consider this. You don't see me sitting here advocating for children to be sent home with guides on how to assemble and disassemble firearms. Why? Because it's not age appropriate and it isn't conducive to helping young minds. I'm also not sitting here pushing for Bibles to be sent home with each student. Why? Because this is a free country and I know not everyone believes what I believe. Like I said before, parents are the final authority, not the school system. In closing, we trust the school system to instruct and educate our children on reading, writing, and arithmetic, not to be surrogate parents. It's as simple as that. We trust them to prepare our children over the years to become intelligent, functional members of society who add to the common good. Books like the one in question serve only to add confusion and social emotional fringe content to a young child's mind when they should be focused on the basics instead of trying to grasp content above their age range. Therefore, I am asking that this book, Love Makes a Family, be removed from the school's curriculum on the grounds stated above and presented throughout this matter. Thank you.
Anything else you want to add?
I think we've said what we need to say.
Mr. Hoffman?
First of all, I think there were some inaccurate representations of our conversations. I never did admit that the book was inappropriate. I don't believe it to be inappropriate. I believe it to be appropriate. So I did say that if a parent didn't want to read that book, they wouldn't have to. So I'll start by clarifying the use of this book. This book is part of a traveling library that is part of 4K outreach hours. So as a part of 4K in the state of Wisconsin, there are 87 and a half outreach hours that schools need to engage families. And I wholeheartedly agree with family involvement. Parents are kids' first teachers. We're 100% in alignment with that. I think everybody in this room agrees with that. We want to engage parents and have them be part of what they do. So each month there are books that are sent home to families to say sit down and read with your kids. They're 4-year-olds, the content isn't heavy. This is a board book, physically it's a board book. It has very few words in it. It's the act of sitting down and reading a book with your child that's where the value is. I don't want to get into a discussion of is there a better book? There's millions of books out there. We'll chase our tail forever on that if that's the point. The point is, this is a book that was chosen. Is it inappropriate? Does it need to be removed? I think some of you have seen the book. I don't know if the rest of you have. And if you're only looking at the photocopy, I just want to pull it up real quick. I mean, what's being alleged as a transgender man on here is quite a stretch. Like, some of the evidence used, one was that there were breasts, but you can clearly see it's just the wave of the blanket that's on here. And even so, there are many men that have breasts that are not transgender. They also cited red cheeks or rosy cheeks. Every character on this page has rosy cheeks. I don't think that makes them a transgender man, or in this case what they were saying, a transgender woman. and on paper they had said it was a transgender man. The length of his hair was cited as a reason he's transgender. I really don't think we're in a position where we're judging men by the length of their hair. And so I think it's a stretch to call that a transgender man, and even so, even if it were a transgender man, which is taking a lot of inferring on the reader's part to make that so, I don't believe that makes this book an inappropriate book. The subject of the book is that love makes a family. There are several simple statements. The first page says love is waking up bright and early. Love is baking a special cake. That's the subject of the book. The subject isn't you must have two same-sex parents. That's not the subject of the book. The subject of the book is that love is what makes a family. So anyways, to get kind of back to some of my thoughts, you've read my statements, you've read their statements in there. The book was chosen in accordance with Policy 361. It does support and enrich the curriculum. It does align with Wisconsin academic standards. It does meet high standards in content literacy, artistic and aesthetic quality, technical aspects, and physical format. It is appropriate for the subject area and for the age, emotional development, ability level, learning styles, and social, emotional, and intellectual development of the students for whom the materials are selected, 4K students and families. And it does incorporate accurate and authentic factual content from authoritative sources, and it represents different and balanced viewpoints on issues of interest and book genres. That's what's in the policy, that's why I'm reading those things. And it is free of profanity and sexual content. So in the original request to remove this, it was stated that there was sexually suggestive comment and it had no educational value. Through our sit-down meeting, I think we were able to clarify that we did recognize that it does have some value to it, and that they were no longer alleging that it was sexually suggestive content, and that we were boiling it down to the fact that it was two same-sex parents that were on here. So it's clearly consistent with our policy. However, if you want to consider this book outside of the policy to remove it because it makes some people uncomfortable about a family structure that's in here, I would caution against that. Like I said, the title of the book is Love Makes a Family. That's the subject of the book. We all know that families come in all shapes and sizes and makeups. Students at this age are learning that they are part of a family. This book doesn't tell them what their family needs to look like. They're learning that you are part of a family, and that family is central to who they are. That's pretty standard learning at this age and early learning, and it's important that they learn that. And this book helps to start some of those conversations with families. To try to eliminate one family structure from representation is dangerous to any student that has a family like that, and really to any and all students and family members and community members to see that that's not a real valid family, I think is dangerous. That speaks volumes, and I don't think that's the message that we intend as a school district to send, just to tell some people that their family is not valid. I really don't think that's the message that we want to send, and that's what we would be sending. The original in the original request and the follow-ups, there's a reference to alternative lifestyles, and I put that in quotes because that was what was quoted in there, and students being exposed to that. We're not talking about the fringes of society here. These are real family structures, real students that we have in our school, in our community. We have staff members who have and are same-sex parents. We have lots of students who have same-sex parents. To say that that's an alternative lifestyle is inaccurate and offensive and hateful, in my opinion. Same-sex marriage is legal, it's recognized. Same-sex parent and guardianship is legal and it is recognized. This isn't crazy. This isn't an alternative lifestyle. It is a lifestyle that may differ from some of the families and from the family requesting that. So, I think I already clarified usage of it. I really don't think I have much else to say, unless you have questions.
Yep, so questions, I'll open it up to questions from the board members, committee members, Joel and, well, I do have questions, yeah. Unless Sarah, you wanna start?
The question that I had was, when you send these books home, because you had mentioned it's like a traveling library, and parents are able to opt their children out of that, how is that possible to opt them out of having exposure to a book that you're sending home in their backpack?
Because it goes to you as a parent, and you can choose to sit down and read that book with the parent, with your child, or you can choose not to sit down and read it.
But my point is, the child already has access to the book in the backpack before they get home to their parent. So you're actually not giving the family an option to say, I find this controversial or not age appropriate, or any other, concern that the family would have with the book.
Yeah, I don't think it was set up that way. It wasn't, here comes something controversial, let me know if you wanna read it or not. It's just a book that says love makes a family, and it says a lot of real facts about it. We're looking at some cartoon pictures here that, and I don't think the author's trying to hide the fact, and I wouldn't deny that that's two men there too, but again, I don't consider that controversial. That's a real family structure that exists in our schools. And it's something else that I added to another family outreach thing that probably every 4K kindergarten class in America does is the beginning of the year, sending in a picture of your family, talking about who's in your family. So when those pictures go up on the wall, I don't think anybody suggested, I don't wanna give anybody ideas, but I don't think anybody suggested, we better not put that up there because there's some family structures in there that we don't agree with. That'd be really dangerous, I think, in my case. So, no, this was not set up, and here's the way to opt out, because this isn't a controversial issue. This isn't like secondary books that have strong language or content where we're telling parents, here comes this unit, read about it, and here's an opt-out, like human growth and development lessons. This is just a book to read with your child. And I'm gonna add to that too, this has been used for a few years. Several hundred times this book is read. This is the first time anything.
Well, that's what I wanna ask, like, when did you start using it?
I don't know if I can give you the exact year, but it's been a couple of years, 2 or 3 years.
And then, so it ran, it was old policy. I can't remember what old policy was. Did you approve it, or?
No,
I
it's
think
not part of
old
the
policy
approval process.
wasn't, yeah.
I just have a quick question, because the committee actually has 3 options today. Either keep the book, move it up to a higher level grade, or to remove it. You're asking to remove it completely and not
We would like it gone.
to actually raise to
I think we can say we would like it gone.
And so I also wanted to ask that when the parents actually, because you see it in your eyes, that the book is plainly, put that it's not controversial. But when the parents actually met with you and pointed it out to you, I think the biggest concern you had was that first page, right?
Yeah.
In regards to it. Did you see that, or were you able to see it through their eyes as to recognize that? Or do you disagree with that?
I see that they believe that 2 men should not be parents. I see
I
that
don't
they
talk
say
about the
that.
transgender aspect of it, so I'm just asking, like, were you able to actually see their point of view?
Oh, I see their point of view. They were very
In
clear on
regards to
what they believe, and I get that, and I
So I'm
and
just
they
saying that
can-
both of you
Yep.
actually disagree in regards
Yeah.
to it.
I
So
think we're
it
just
is
in disagreement.
a disagreement in regards to what you feel is objectionable, controversial, right?
Can I also
So-
say something really
Yeah.
quick? And even when we were speaking, we never said the words in that book were bad. We don't. You want an audiobook of that book? Awesome. Let's listen. It will confuse my children, and to me that is not okay. And it could confuse other children, and that is not okay.
I wanna ask you, in your letter, you said if this book is objectionable to families, it does not need to be read. The book is sent home with the students, parents to read. The students are not reading this book independently at school without parental knowledge, so the book isn't in the classroom at all?
No.
So what is the point of the book?
The point of the book is to create a reading time with parents
Okay.
and their children.
There's
a lot of things, this isn't the only one.
Okay, and you have different themes?
Yeah, they kind of fit, some of them fit nicely with the monthly theme that's going on in the room, and I don't have the full list at the top of my head.
So, and you reference standards, in here. But the whole premise is, we want our kids to read, right? We wanna give them
And we want
reading,
it
we
to be
want
a
them to
family
learn how to
activity.
read, yep, and we wanna encourage families to read with them. So is the focus reading, or is it social emotional learning?
It's reading. This is an activity of creating a language-rich environment at home. Sit down, read a book. That's the point.
And then when you said parents, if they're objectionable to it, how do you think that the child will feel? Like the parent says, no, I'm sorry, we're not gonna do this assignment that the teacher recommended. This is unacceptable. How do you think the child would feel about that?
I don't know. I don't know how a parent would bring that up. I would think if a parent looked at
Well,
this.
the book is gonna be sent home, they didn't get to read it,
Mhm.
and I mean, unfortunately, that might happen. And the child is gonna feel a little let down, I guess, I would think, or not, it depends on the parenting. So we're kind of putting the child in the middle a little bit here.
We have to know. That's. I
So
don't
you want them to read it even if it goes against their own family's
No.
values?
No, I would think, I mean, and I'm trying to keep this completely away from me
Yeah.
personally, but I've got
Right.
children as well. I've had countless conversations with my kids that have been uncomfortable, where I've had to teach them something that I believe, that I think is right, that they've encountered. I mean, that's parenting, right?
Mhm.
Like our kids are exposed to a lot of things, whether it's through friends, whether it's through the media, whether it's all over the place, and it's our job as parents to teach them what we believe, and ultimately, it scares the crap out of probably most of the parents in here, but at some point, they leave us, and they're putting together their belief system based on what they learn from us, what they learn from everything else, so, there's, if a parent sees a book that comes through here and they say, I don't wanna look at that picture, it's up to them to decide, oh, we just didn't get this tonight, or we're not reading this because I don't want you to learn this. I can't make that call for parents. Like I said, this is hundreds of times it's been home, this is the first time it's come up. So, and I doubt that it could be, but I doubt that there were parents that saw this and said, oh, I'm not reading this, and then never said anything to the teacher or me. I really believe most people read through and never batted an eye, never noticed, never even thought about it, but.
So if a parent were to, a child were to bring it home and a parent were to open it up and then they look at this page and it wouldn't go with their family's values, I think, or with that child's values, whatever the parent is instilling in that child, right? At 4 years old. I think that it could confuse the child, that they're not gonna read it and that, it might create more questions than really what the standards are supposed to be focusing on, like fundamentally concrete standards that I read. I reviewed your standards, they're a little bit more concrete than what some of the pages are depicting, in my opinion. And I understand that parents a child is learning about self, right? Like, they're learning about their world still, and they're learning about other people's relationships, other families. So it's just starting, it's kind of emergent, right? So I think it would create, for some families and for some kids, more questions than not, and it could potentially confuse the child, for some families. And, in your letter, it just struck me, it's just, why go there? If this book is objectionable, you said, to families. So you're already kind of thinking like it could be a possibility.
I am not.
Okay,
I only thought
Got
that because I had a family that said this is
Okay, got
objectionable
it.
to you. And I'm trying to clarify the purpose.
Thank you.
Because there's a difference, it's me and the teacher sitting in front of 20 kids and reading a book to them. They don't have a choice about what is happening to them.
But it
I'm
is still a
teaching it.
supplemental material,
This
and
is
it's
sent
still
home.
represented by the school, and you're sending it home.
Yep.
So me as a parent, I'm thinking, okay, the school's sending this to my child, in the bus, on the bus to home, and we're gonna sit down and read it and crack open to the first page, and I see 2 men in bed. And this does not go along with some people's values, right? So I'm thinking it's not age appropriate for some people. And I think it could be confusing, and I think it should be parent-led, and this is where the lines kind of get blurred. I think that, that's why there's an issue, is because it's kind of in the territory of the parents should lead this conversation about different families. And I understand their families might be different, but they're learning within their family. And I don't necessarily think that parents wanna expose them to all of this immediately. That might not be the thing. And again, they would have to object to reading the book. That I trust that the parent is sending, the school is sending to my child, and I'm trusting them, that it's age appropriate. So you're saying it's age appropriate.
Can I answer that with a question?
Sure.
When is it appropriate for a kid to see that their family is a valid family? If it's not okay when they're 4 years old to say, oh, I have two dads and that's okay, is it okay for them to learn that when they're 10?
So
Families are started
they're
from the beginning.
within their own family, right? And I think, the focus is reading. And there are plenty of other topics they could be reading. And the standards are more fundamental and more concrete than what this book is conveying or prescribing. So I just feel like it could bring more questions than not, and it's not necessarily in line with the standards, in my opinion. So I feel that just because a child goes to a public school doesn't mean they have to learn about alternative relationships. And then you said in here in your letter too that they're not learning about does not depict sexual acts or relationships. Of course it does not depict sexual acts, but it does depict relationships. This is not in line with our human growth and development. We don't even address human growth and development when it comes to relationships as the parents stated until later on. So again, I don't feel it's in line with that. I think the parents are fully capable of teaching about families, different families in the world when they feel it's right with their family's values and their child's values. You don't know my family, their family, but you don't know all their values. So to just put a blanket book out with all the different types of families, I mean, some might say, I don't disagree with it, but I'm just not ready to teach them about it yet. And again, I don't wanna punish the child for not reading it, I mean, you're sending it home saying it's age appropriate at 4K. So, my other note is, again, the focus should be for reading, and the fact that, this was chosen and you possibly thought it was objectionable, and that it was not even considered to be slightly sensitive, is a little concerning, so. Any other comments? Questions? You guys want to say? So, what is your consensus?
so-
So
my
now we'll kind of
thoughts
deliberate
Right.
and kind of scope, but.
is that it's controversial. I do not believe that it's age appropriate to send home with someone that's in 4K and answer questions that families may not be ready to talk about yet. I think that the book there's nothing wrong with the book itself, but looking at the age, I think that we need to leave these conversations for families up to families. And, I agree, we are a public school system, but we're an education system, and education first, to me says that there are better options for books that can be sent home to talk about families going to the zoo, looking at different animals. One thing I noticed too in this book is there's several, pictures where they're in spaces of bedrooms and bathtubs. I mean, these are just very family, home, safe spaces for children, and it's very personal, which is why I say, looking at the family versus the education value, I think this is very personal, very family-oriented versus being an educational tool to teach about what different families look like. And I think that, again, you're opening the door to to force a conversation on families of someone that's 4 years old that they may not be ready to talk about yet. I would say that the age appropriateness is a concern for me.
Sure, well, unless there's more discussion or any other comments or questions?
Go ahead. I also do believe that if we're looking at the human growth and development standard that we're under review in our joint policy curriculum meeting at this time, I didn't even realize that we don't have a standard for that 4K to 2. We were discussing splitting those up, looking at that starting in 3rd grade. And I think that that's more age appropriate in a 3rd grade level to talk about the different, like I said, these close relationships like a family. And something that could be considered controversial, being sent home with someone that's 4 years old. As a school district, I think it's not necessarily education first looking at this book.
I think I've heard, stark contrast in opinions and point of views in regards to how people interpreted the policy. Leaving emotion and personal opinions aside, I try to focus just strictly facts, right? It all boils down, and at the end of the day, it goes back to the policy, which is policy 361 of our criteria. Do we actually follow the set guidelines there? And there is, in my opinion, the context that is in here, it's contrary to the criteria that the board has set forth in this policy. And, I've heard explanations in regards to and views of how they interpreted what the policy says, and being policy chair that oversaw the revision, I can tell you that I have full understanding of the spirit of this policy. And so there is a part here, there's a couple of sections here in the policy where it talks that it directly relates to human growth and development. This book, doesn't align to the human growth and development curriculum and the timeline this content is supposed to be taught. And so the material should not be introduced until much later, because technically in paper 2, it should not contain any content or material at all. The second part, and it ties into, there's also another form called Supplemental Materials Request. And there are actually check marks as to the administrator or teachers are supposed to look before that actually gets inserted and available. 2 points is the age and grade level appropriateness, and the other one is free of offensive or questionable content. And this is aligned with human growth and development. I mean, it's just black and white to me that the fact that there are, and I asked, 2 different opinions, and I guess I'm not saying one opinion is right or the other. The fact that there is controversial and objectionable opinions between the 2, to me, I just think it's just safe. Let's just actually, have content that there is nobody to question about. There's a reason why, for example, our district doesn't teach creation versus evolution, because it's extremely divisive and it's extremely controversial. So our district and other districts have stayed clear, from teaching that. And so that's just me, it's just black and white in regards to, there's been, the fact that people have interpreted it differently is means and grounds for me to say, let's just avoid it altogether. That, this quote unquote questionable content, and I'm not even making a judgment call on one or the other, doesn't matter to me, but I'm just basing it on the policy that we have now and the guidelines and the guardrails that we have. And so, I don't want to talk about like debate on who's right or wrong, what's objective or not. The fact is, because here we are all today, sitting in here, because everybody has differing opinions. So for me, the decision is just based on our policy and what the criteria says. And it doesn't follow the criteria that we have in our stated policy.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? Okay, so moving along to action item. Now, do I make a motion or is it?
Yes.
Okay,
You need to make a motion on one of those
choices.
choices.
Okay. Do we need a certain wording for that or is it just I read it from that sheet? Okay. So do we have a motion or, so do we want to take no removal action, remove the challenge supplemental educational material from the course, or do we want a modification? So you were saying, remove it.
I would be more inclined to grant the reconsideration.
Okay, so graphic reconsideration and remove it, is that what you?
On the grounds of the human growth and development standard.
So do I have a motion, do you wanna read it out?
Oh, thank you, I don't have the agenda control. Yes, I'll make the motion to remove the challenge supplemental educational material from the course on the grounds of not being in alignment with the human growth and development standards that we have here in the school district of Menominee Falls.
Do we need to add anything else, Mr. Munoz? No. And then pursuant to policy 871, I think that should be added maybe, for Amy, Ms. Winkles, do you have any questions?
No, but just to be clear, when we're talking about the course, we're talking about 4K.
Correct, yeah, because that's in policy, it'll say per age and,
Yeah, they were,
what do I wanna say?
there were two
Age
different
level, grade level.
policies listed, 361, 871, but also the supplemental material form. So two policies in one form of action. So perhaps that could also be indicated.
Sure.
If,
So policy is it 361, the
361,
form,
871.
and then 871.
and then supplemental material form.
Yes, that is
Supplemental.
360.
Exhibit
Exhibit
A.
361 criteria, exhibit A.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Do we want any more discussion about it?
Make sure Laura has that.
Yeah, let's,
Motion.
Laura, do you wanna read it back?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion to remove the challenged supplemental materials from the 4-year-old kindergarten course on the grounds of not being in alignment with the HGMD standards, also HGMD we have in the school district of Menominee Falls pursuant to policy 871 and 361 and the supplemental material form exhibit A.
Yeah, I think you got it, first crack, right? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay. All right, this meeting is adjourned. Oh, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. This meeting's adjourned.
That is shameful. Shame.
Have a good night, everybody.